Hi, I'm Andre and I'm a black nerd, or am I a mutant? With a review for you better reviews. X-Men Apocalypse. I'm gonna give you the good, the bad, and the nerdy. And this is a no spoilers review. I'll talk about some of the plot points and characters, but I won't give away any big reveals. First off, I feel like I have to defend X-Men Apocalypse. Early reviews for this movie were mostly negative, so I was a little concerned going into this thing. I don't know if it was my low expectations or if the internet was being too harsh, but I really don't get the strong hate that this movie has been getting from some people. I don't know if it's because it was too close to Civil War, so people have that in their brain, or maybe it's because people who grew up with the Apocalypse storyline in the comic books feel like the movie is not doing it justice. I don't know. The movie's got problems, but it's got a lot of good stuff too. Not all superhero movies are the same. It'd be like comparing Zootopia to Angry Birds. Foreshadow for a future review. If you're looking for standard summer movie action, this movie has it. It's like a Tiny Toon Adventures version of the original X-Men films. For the next 2 hours, you'll see our mutant powers. It's Tiny X Adventures, time to start the day. With Cyclops and Jean Grey. I enjoyed the action sequences. It was nice seeing new X-Men and young versions of X-Men we've seen in the original films. I just call them X-Men's. Them X-Men's! Y'all see them new X-Men's? This movie has some comedic moments and good one-liners, particularly from Evan Peters, who returns as Quicksilver. There were moments in the theater where everybody was laughing. But I'm gonna get to that in a little bit. But even with all the comedy, this movie gets pretty dramatic, particularly in the case of Magneto. He has the most story or backstory in this movie. With all its humor and bright colors, Jubilee's jacket, this movie gets dark. I feel like this is one of the most violent X-Men movies to date. There's killing, there's death, there's blood, right up close, not like in the background or cutting away. And even the times when they do that, they then come back to show you, oh no, those people died. Let me show you how they died. Even Batman v Superman was like, damn X-Men, too dark, man, too dark. Did somebody from Deadpool work on this? Somebody's preparing themselves for that R-rated X-Men film. But it works most of the time, shows the severity of the situation, puts some drama into the movie, and shows again why humans don't really like mutants that much. My only issue with the deaths in this film is whenever it's random people, they're killed right away. But whenever it's the main cast that's about to be killed, it's always, no, I'll trap you instead, or I'm gonna have a very long speech that I have to say before I try to kill you when you know I'm particularly gonna be stopped before I cast that final blow. That trope's gotta stop, y'all. Now, I also want to give props to the cast in this movie. A lot of them, well, most of them, did a really good job in this movie. And that took a lot for me, because a lot of X-Men in this movie are younger versions of X-Men we saw in the original movies. So I had my arms folded, just being like, really? You gonna be Halle Berry right now? You gonna be James Marsden right now? You supposed to be Alan Cumming? You think you gonna be Famke? You ain't Famke! You can't be Famke! But the cast did good. Sophie Turner was great as Jean Grey. Ty Sheridan brought the attitude to Cyclops. Kodi Smit-McPhee was so adorable. As Nightcrawler, they did his makeup really well, and you could tell that he studied a little bit of Alan Cumming from X2. I even had no problems with Alexandra Shipp as Storm or Olivia Munn as Psylocke. And it didn't hurt they also looked fine in this. Now, a lot of them don't get a lot of screen time or lines, but when they're in action, they're good. And some of the returning cast is good as well. I'm really starting to turn more on liking James McAvoy as Professor X. Wasn't really feeling it in First Class, but now I'm like, all right, you cool. And Nicholas Hault as Beast, he's good, but as Human Beast, I'm sorry, I am trying, but I cannot accept the Beast that y'all have created. The Beast version of Beast, I can't feel that. Every time I saw Beast as Beast in this movie, I just wanted to be like, hey dude, I think you're in the wrong movie. Alice to the Looking Glass is in the theater next door. It doesn't feel like Beast to me. He feels like he should be in a Jubilee Zoo. Jubilee Zoo, Jubilee Zoo, X-Men and Marvel are waiting for you. But the cast did good and it's a solid film. Has comedy, has drama, has a mature sense of action. What could be wrong with this movie? Well, do you notice the one thing I'm not talking about in a movie called X-Men Apocalypse? Look, I like Oscar Isaac and I think the character of Apocalypse is interesting, but there's just something about it in this movie that just feels off. You know how those early pictures of Apocalypse came out and we all joked that he looked like Ivan Ooze and Fox was like, no, don't worry, you haven't seen the final form. It'll totally look different in the final form in the movie. Well, I have seen the movie in the final form and I can tell you, pretty frankly, he looks like Ivan Ooze. And not only does he look like Ivan Ooze, but Apocalypse pretty much has the exact same backstory as Ivan Ooze in this movie. He's a monster from several years ago who was put into a containment and then buried underground, and then several years later he's dug up, comes back out, wants to take over the world, learns everything he missed while he was gone, the Brady Bunch reunion, recruits people to do his bidding, including someone's father, a kid's father. That's the exact same story as Ivan Ooze. The only thing that was missing was him selling Ooze to kids and telling all their parents to walk off a cliff. Ah yes, the X-Men. I see Charles is still using his kids to do his dirty work. Well, meet my kids. I was waiting for a scene where the X-Men walked up to Apocalypse and go, "We're the X-Men," and he'd go back, "Ooh, where's my autograph book?" Dude, if you would have put Goldar in this movie, it would have made perfect sense. Ooh, Apocalypse, I'm here to destroy the Power Rangers, I mean the X-Men. Ooh. And don't forget, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie was a 20th Century Fox film. Fox, don't lie. You found that Ivan Ooze costume in your storage closet and you did some work on it in the costume department and you said, "Hey, Oscar Isaac, yeah, this is your costume." Shh. Why does it say Ivan Ooze on the name tag? Shut up, Oscar, put on the suit. It pains me to say this, but I honestly think Apocalypse should have been a CGI character or a hybrid human CGI character because he just never looks menacing. This is a guy that's supposed to take over the whole world and rebuild a better one from its ashes, blah, 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 blah. But every time I see him, I'm like, you don't really look all that scary. He's not even that tall. There's points in the movie where he's standing next to the four horsemen. Some of them are taller than him. And what really sucks about it is the story that they gave Magneto in this movie is a really good, well-directed and well-crafted backstory to make Magneto the main bad guy in this movie. It's a great motive for him to be the main villain. With Apocalypse, he's just a bad guy who's a bad guy because he's a bad guy, therefore he's bad. That's it. Maybe Apocalypse shouldn't have been a main villain. Maybe he should have been a third act monster. I hate to say it, but maybe Apocalypse should have been their doomsday. Just show up in the third act as a big boss monster the X-Men have to fight, and we're out. It's just a shame because I think the character could have been done right, but if you want Apocalypse, stick with your comic books or the 90s X-Men cartoon. Plus, if you watch Apocalypse in the 90s X-Men cartoon, you'll actually get more Jubilee in that cartoon than you'll get in this movie, because Jubilee's scenes got cut bad. There's a Miss Pac-Man arcade machine in this movie, and I think that arcade cabinet has more close-up shots and more lines in this movie than Jubilee. And it's not even just Jubilee. Storm, Psylocke, Angel, Nightcrawler, sometimes even Cyclops and Jean Grey. You see them all throughout the movie. They show off their actions, but as far as lines and backstory, you don't get a lot of it with some of these people. It gets very rushed with a lot of supporting characters because there's still a lot of time being focused on those older members of the First Class X-Men. And of course, more Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique, who I am sorry. I enjoy Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique much more in Days of Future Past than in this one. She just kind of feels like, meh, I'm here. And I get it. There's contract obligations. Maybe Jennifer Lawrence wants to move on to new things where she doesn't have to put on blue makeup. That's totally fine. Then give her like a couple of scenes to establish she's in the movie and let her move on and do her thing. You don't focus the movie on them, especially when you got this whole new cast of people who look like they're very excited and are enjoying being in this movie. I literally feel like there's parts of the movie where it pans over to Mystique and you can see like Jubilee and Jean Grey and Nightcrawler be like, hey, wait, why's the camera moving? No! I want to be in this movie. I'm an X-Man. There's a speech that she gives in this movie and the theater started laughing because they just thought it sounded weird. Speaking of laughter in the theater, there's a lot of parts of the movie that are funny, but unfortunately there's some parts of the movie that are unintentionally funny, again, when it comes to Apocalypse. Because everything he says is always said like this, and after a while, it starts to get ridiculous. Tone in general is kind of all over the place. There are scenes in this movie where comedy and drama are happening at the same time. Particularly, there's a scene with Quicksilver that's really awesome. It's definitely a highlight of the movie, but it's weird because it has a lot of comedic elements in it during a scene that's actually pretty dramatic. So I'm like, how do I feel? Do I laugh? Do I cry? Am I shocked? Am I surprised? Am I having a good time? Well, tell me how to feel, movie. These feelings that I feel, tell me that it's real. And yes, the third act definitely goes into that we gotta destroy the world CGI territory, which is just getting tiring in movies in general, but particularly with X-Men, it's not really necessary. The characters are what make X-Men special. Their relationships, their superpowers, the way they have different beliefs about how mutants and humans should live together, them fighting each other but still kind of being friends with each other. You could have had a very good Civil War-esque type of fight of mutant versus mutant in this thing. That could have been kind of interesting, but instead that's kind of on the back burner to let's blow up some stuff. So yeah, those are some of the criticisms, but I was never bored. I was very entertained by this. I was never angry at this film at all. It's an entertaining movie that has some flaws, but at the end of the day, it's not all that bad. I enjoyed a lot of scenes in it. It's just unfortunate the scenes without Apocalypse I enjoy more than the ones with Apocalypse in a movie called X-Men Apocalypse. I like other X-Men movies better than this, but there are some X-Men movies I don't like as much as this. You can still enjoy the action, the drama, and the comedy in this movie, even if some of the comedy wasn't on purpose. Oh, and it's a Marvel movie, so you know there's probably a big cameo from a certain you-know-who in it, and make sure you stay till after the credits for something that will confuse you unless you're a big comic book expert. Thank you all for subscribing to my channel and watching my reviews and other videos, and if you're new here, please click the subscribe button, and of course, let me know what you thought of X-Men Apocalypse in the comments. I love you like a play cousin. I'm Addy5000, chain chomp, yelp.